All right, welcome back, everyone. Another awesome episode of season 3, Beneath the Helmet. I got a guest that we've been communicating back and forth, a leader in the field of first responders. Today, I get a chance to sit down with Dr. Terry Anderson, retired criminologist, professor, 38 years, I hear. That's amazing.
Yes.
And author of several books. A couple that we're going to dive in today is the co-author of Every Officer is a Leader. Every fire rescue professional is a leader, and also a fellow coach and a positive intelligence coach. So, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about who Dr. Terry Anderson is.
Well, about 50 years ago, I took a job at Fraser Valley College in Abbotsford, British Columbia, teaching communication and problem solving to social workers and counseling to social workers. And I taught there for a few years in that program, and the criminology department all of a sudden started up. And they said, we would like you to teach the same courses that you're teaching to the social workers to the justice and public safety people, everybody from corrections to immigration to customs to policing to fire. We had some fire people in our classes. And I said, yeah, I would love to teach to that sector. I had some experience, and I also had a vision that it was part of my purpose to prepare and equip and support officers of all kinds. I found that out in as early as 1969 when I was sitting by a creek and I just was really searching for my purpose. And I just knew somehow, I don't even understand how that works. I just knew that that was the direction that I was really supposed to be heading in. And so I never stopped heading in that direction. And I'm still really excited about supporting and encouraging and developing leaders in those sectors, all of those sectors.
Love it. Love it. Well, over the 40 plus years you've been doing this, you've given the first responder community a wealth of information, support. So I just want to say thank you for that to start with.
Well, I appreciate that.
So in the fire world, we talk about competency-based leadership. I know that's something that you discuss quite a bit. So competency-based leadership, how would you summarize that? What is that per se versus just theory and reading a leadership book per se?
Well, let's go back in history to when competency-based training first really began in the counseling sector at universities. And it was the university at Long Beach where I took my first training from a Dr. Cash. And what they did was they broke down the behaviors that are effective in any kind of interview and any kind of interchange into trainable segments. For example, giving undivided attention. That would mean that I would have to turn my head toward you, lean in a little bit, and not pay attention to anything else but you. But people didn't know those behaviors before they started being trained in them. And they would be inwardly distracted or externally distracted. And the connection would be broken between them and the other person just because they lacked that one skill of attending. They didn't know how to do it, and it wasn't their fault. We don't learn these skills, the communication or problem solving or team leadership skills. We don't learn those in school, in elementary school, high school. Most universities do not teach them. Most medical schools do not teach them. You only get those skills if you go into a master's level program in counseling, social work, and some medical schools are starting to train doctors in these skills because doctors inevitably end up making decisions based upon assessments. that occur in the interview, the medical interview. So the skills apply to all professions. And at first, we the first book was for anybody, and it was Transforming Leadership. And that came out in about 1978. And that was a result of my PhD dissertation. They got translated into a book and got published. So that's when I realized that this stuff is important and people need it and want it, but they don't know they need it and want it. And that's kind of been if there's a problem with this whole movement, it's that people don't know that they don't know. And when you try to tell them, they kind of don't want to hear it because it's hard to hear what you're not so good at.
Yeah, good point.
And so we looked at, well, what's the impact on the 6,000 of our graduates that I tracked as many of them as I could over time. And as they graduated, they had, before they graduated, they had two 480-hour field practices in an agency being supervised often by one of our graduates who understood all these skills and who evaluated them in the performance of the skills. And that's self-management skills, interpersonal communication skills, 12 skills in each category, problem solving skills, team leadership skills, and organizational and community leadership skills. So those 5 skill sets make up a fully equipped leader, mm-hmm. a fully prepared leader, a fully practiced leader. So when we sent our students out on 480-hour field practices, they had to demonstrate these skills and be evaluated on them. Then the people who were applying to policing went to the Justice Institute and they went through the assessment center. And our graduates did better at the assessment center than graduates from other programs who did not have these competency-based courses and got hired more often as police officers and got promoted twice as often. Now, how do we know this? Well, I just kept track of as many graduates as I could, and I still am in touch with many of them. And so that's when I became a believer. When we started getting that kind of feedback from the field, we knew that we were actually doing something really important because the same officers were telling us they were having more success and less stress in their families and their marriages, that the skills apply at home as well as at work. And that was so important for me to hear because I was trying to make sure that my marriage worked and my communication with my kids, and I was practicing and developing the skills too because I had just learned them a few years before in the course that I took at California State University, Long Beach, in a summer course. So that's kind of a really compressed version of how this started and what some of the impacts of it have been.
I love all the 5 factors and the 5 skill sets that you kind of outline. A lot of people would argue those are soft skills. A lot of people would say then title them as soft skills, and I despise that word personally because I think those are the hardest skills, honestly, to learn, to grasp, to master. What do you call those skills? Is there a term or a phrase or something that you call those critical skills of interpersonal
Uh,
relationships, like communication?
well, we just call them what they are,
Mm,
self-management skills,
yeah.
and that includes everything from stress management to financial management. A whole set of 12 skills there where if those things aren't in place, then your foundation is going to be weak. You're going to be leaking somewhere. So if those skills are assessed and developed, then you're going to have a more peaceful, more organized, more productive life and career, because it's the life foundation that allows the career success. And it's when the life foundation is not solid and you don't have the skills to build that foundation and make it solid, then the career gets interrupted by divorce, by Uh, and I'm not saying that I was perfect because I experienced divorce and my wife decided to leave and I had no control over it. So I had to learn how to deal with grief and I had to learn how to deal with, hey, okay, what am I going to do to redecide my life and readjust my values? But I knew what the building blocks were and I knew which ones I had to replace and strengthen. So it just made the process of recovery and um, rebuilding of my life, I guess, more um, like a project rather than something that terrible that happened to me. So
And the positive spin on it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so I just think that the skills are what's been silently missing in most of the university and college training programs. And certainly if you look at the agenda for becoming a firefighter, a fire and rescue professional, some people who are doing the training have those some of the skills and they're modeling them and they're transferring them without ever putting them up on a flip chart or without ever putting them in a PowerPoint presentation or training somebody in those skills. They're modeling the skills and transfers. People get it because they've been treated with empathy and understanding. They go, wow, that's really important. I want to do that too. So that kind of silent training has been happening, but systematic skills, competency based training is really a level above that. It's not informal, it's formal, it's um, practiced and evaluated and confirmed so that people move from what we see here above my hat as great to Magnus. Well, we're all great. We all have this fantastic potential and we're all to a certain level competent. But if we want to move from great to Magnus, we have to have competencies developed and confirmed so that we have more confidence and more competence in how we treat people and how we solve problems and how we lead teams. And that's one of the most important parts is we saw that the leaders who were leading teams who had these skills, they were able to get more team consensus because they didn't just give orders, they requested feedback and input from their team members about how we together can make our best decision for implementation and how we together can evaluate and adjust and correct course and do continuous improvement. And those skills make the huge difference in how that team performs and how the leader is perceived and valued and how the people on that team feel respected and how their ideas and their hearts become linked into that team to make a positive difference for the community.
Yeah, I truly feel I've seen a pivot in, especially the first responder world, to include self leadership. But I know most of the schools, most of the training, it talks about leading organizations. You're the fifth skill set, and that's where
Yeah.
it kind of starts and that's where it ends. Is leading organizations. Leading self is just starting to pop up in your organization, but in other organizations and other people talking in conferences and writing about it and stuff like that. It's definitely starting to change. Where do you think somebody should start if they want to start leading by self, leading their self first? Is there some area or some tip that you would say start here?
There's a new book that Dr. Mitch Chaviti just published called Magnus Leadership. And that book has in it a foundational research foundation for everything that we're going to be talking about today. Because he finally built the bridge, the overarching bridge that encompasses everything that we've been doing. And that helps people move from being the great people that they are to the Magnus people who are able to be resilient and have a high performance standard and have a team that ends up being able to engage in higher performance and outcomes and morale. So I would say that'd be a good place to start. And if they can, we're trying to actually bring the Magnus workshop, which is a 2 or 3 day workshop, to British Columbia because it's happening all over the United States. And there's no reason why it couldn't happen here. And they could also enroll not only in that workshop when it comes to British Columbia or across Canada, but there is a course they can enroll in at the Canadian Police Knowledge Network. And the course is called Credible Leadership Series, and it comes in 4 parts. And it's really accessible online, available to anybody. And that would give them the introduction to all 60 skills, and they can begin practicing it on their own. And what Michel Legault has done is he's helped to build a blended learning version of that program so that people take the online portion, then they meet as a team on Zoom, and they practice the skills, give each other feedback, and then they go back and they learn the next set of 12 skills, and they come back. So that's another option that they could either enroll in the completely online option, or they could enroll in the facilitated option that has the team meet every few weeks between modules.
Those are
Yeah.
great resources. Yeah, on your website, there's a plethora of books and resources for the listener to purchase, to look at, to read. There's a lot of information there, so I'll definitely have that
Yeah,
in the show notes.
that's on the commandcollege.org website.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
My own coaching website is consultingcoach.com. And that's where I do some coaching with some key leaders, uh, probably a few a week is about, I'm trying to be retired, but it doesn't completely work.
Yes.
And I enjoy very much the work that I do in coaching and consulting. I also do team development for the state of California for sheriff's departments and police departments. And I do 1 or 2 3-day workshops a year in California as well. And we introduce them to continuous improvement process so they can build a team that learns and develops and practices these skills while they're solving problems together as a team. And while this continuous improvement team advises the executive team about what they're willing and able to implement in terms of solving a problem in the community or solving an internal organizational issue. So once consensus gets developed and there's a regular monthly meeting for review and fine tuning and adjustment, then the executive team and the team in the organization that's trying to do the implementation are in communication on a regular basis. This prevents a whole bunch of problems, and it also gives the team the recognition and support that they need to be successful. That's been a really very successful approach that I've engaged in, I don't know, probably 50 times with different organizations in the last 30 years.
And I assume that's you're teaching them to build that leadership team well past the course, well past the workshop, well past you being involved. That's kind of the key, I would imagine, right?
That's exactly
Hmm.
right. And I worked with Vancouver Police, Delta Police, the RCMP in Surrey, the RCMP in Richmond, and they learned this process. And depending on who becomes the next chief, some agencies have continued to do the process, and other ones, the next chief comes in and says, "Well, that's not the way I do things. Stop doing this continuous improvement stuff, and I'll just do what I say."
Mhm.
Well, I had 2 commanders in one part of a city tell me they're still doing the continuous improvement process with their own teams, and they meet with each other to communicate and solve problems. They don't call it continuous improvement team meetings anymore. They just call it, we're having team meetings.
Well, it's a skill set, right? They don't necessarily have to title it with something. It's a skill set they've
That's
learned. Yeah.
that's right. And they
Yeah.
didn't want to give it up because it worked
Mhm.
so well. That's a great story. It was
Yeah.
a real validation for me
I love
to
that.
hear that and to see that.
So you've been involved in leadership for decades and decades. But I'm very curious, is there something new in the, say, last 5 years that you've had a bit of an epiphany of leadership or some sort of change in your mindset around leadership? Anything that sticks out for you?
Yeah, it's the great to Magnus
Mhm.
movement really that's happening that Dr. Giovanni started, and he integrated all of my work into that Magnus approach to developing the individual officer, the team, and the organization for community impact. So that's, I'm so glad I found him, and I'm so glad that we found each other to be able to blend these uh, really, I guess, movements together into this great to Magnus process and program that's available to anybody. Any officer in the world can uh, download the Magnus Works app, and the Magnus app is also available, and they can download that and access some of the material and information for free. And there's also a paid version that enables an organization to assess the skills and development and issues that emerge in an organization, including the health and wellness issues that officers face and firefighters face. Um, and I think that that's an important thing for if I were a police chief or a fire chief, I would want to know how my staff are perceiving their own mental health. And so what we've developed is an assessment process where officers do a self-assessment of their mental health and their functioning, and that gets reported anonymously to the executive team. And it gets collated together. All the officers' data gets collated, and they get a graph of how the mental and physical health and wellness factors are going down or going up in their organization. So they now have a measurement of how things are going with their staff. And I think that's pretty important, and it's an innovation that hasn't occurred before that we know of. Um, so that's just emerged out of this whole every officer is a leader, credible leadership, great to Magnus movement that is spreading across the United States, and part of it is happening in Canada through the Canadian Police Knowledge Network, which fire and rescue folks can enroll in. I understand they can enroll in at the Canadian Police Knowledge Network in any of those courses, and some of the they have some fire courses on there as well, specific for fire.
There's not too many programs that I've taken in the last 20 some odd years that talk about leadership and mental health in the same conversation.
Right. How do we
Mental
lead
health
our own
is
health?
a, yeah, mental health is a completely different subject that you learn somewhere down the road on your own.
Yeah, and just having turned 80 years old and having set a goal to live healthily till I'm 100, really has fine-tuned me into this whole area of the relationship between mental health and physical wellness. They go together. And that's where my own experience with positive intelligence, I was introduced to positive intelligence in my first Magnus workshop that I attended that Mitch hosted in California. And that's when I found out about positive intelligence, which is the capacity to move from an alarm state on the left side of the brain to a Magnus or to a sage state, empathy state, innovation state in the right side of the brain, the right prefrontal cortex, and how to get hold of the lever that to move from left to right. You can train the brain to become stronger that way. And so that's what positive intelligence uh, does as a technology is it gives people opportunities to practice moving from left to right and addressing many, many unresolved situations in their past and current situations that are happening They can learn to move with strength and increasing strength from the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain where there is empathy and innovation. This side of the brain, it's just a bunch of records repeating themselves, anxiety records, history, trauma, over and over that drains energy and drains confidence and drains morale and drains hope. And everybody has it going on over here. Nobody's immune, but not everybody learns how to develop the muscle to move over to the right and stay in the right side of the brain.
A great program. How long have
Yeah.
you been a coach with that organization?
I got certified about a year and a half ago, but the previous 2 years before that, I went through the program, learned it, and then I went through the coach training, and then I went through 6 months coach certification training. But I was teaching executive coaching at Railroads University for several years prior to that. And prior to that, I was certified by another organization as an executive coach. So I've just had these great experiences of coaching really fine leaders who really wanted to do continuous improvement for themselves as well as for their team and their organization. So I've had this honor of working with them. And it's been a fulfillment of my career and my own personal sense of what my heart's purpose is.
And the wealth of experience and connections you've made over the last 80 years is astonishing. It's amazing to hear. So
Well, it's astonishing to me. I thought I was going to retire 20
yeah.
years ago.
Yes.
And I went down to live in Los Angeles with my new wife, and uh, the chief at RCMP Surrey, or no, Richmond, referred me to the sheriff of LA County, and he sent him a copy of the book. Well, I was just writing the third edition of the book, and so the sheriff endorsed it. And he asked me to sit on a committee called the LACPAC Committee, LA County Peer Advisory Consortium, where the two fire chiefs from LA County and LA City and the two police deputy chiefs from LA City and City Fire and LA City Police met once a month to discuss how they could improve interoperability, joint buying powers, and emergency preparations, and how they could coordinate their four agencies together. So the sheriff asked me to sit on that committee as a volunteer, and I volunteered to do that for a year. And the deputy chief of personnel and training said to me, I finally read your book. This is after a year of my being in these meetings. He said, I finally read your book, and we have to do this at LAPD. So we put together 25 of the best officers that he could find in the LAPD, and we shot over 300 3-minute videos, which became the Every Officer is a Leader program that Dr. Mitch Javidi published. I didn't know Dr. Mitch Javidi until about that time when we were finishing the videos, and he decided to put them up and make them available to any officer. And LAPD gave us permission to use all the videos, and we gave them permission to use all the videos for free on house. So it was a double win and a triple win for the officers who benefited from it. Many, many hundreds. I think there's 6 million hours of training that have happened online uh, in the last 15 years since that was, or 13 years since that was published. Yeah.
So for the listener right now who's listening to this conversation and trying to figure out how they can embrace a little bit of this Magnus in themselves, where do they start? Where do they start to learn about, not necessarily about this program, but how do they start to learn about the importance and what can change in their life if they start to look at themselves, lead themselves first, and show up that Magnus style? What's going to change in their organization if they do this? Is there something that you can say, like, if you do this, things are going to change?
I would say training, skills development is the critical success factor, but also education of the mind. And that's why our courses have a balance of education and training. So learning about leadership theories is important. Like take as much leadership, take as many courses as you can get because you'll always gain something from the leadership theories and the leadership skills. But don't presume that because you've had a leadership course and you understand some theories that that's going to translate to performance. It's very difficult. 1 in 10 people has the capacity to understand a leadership theory and then implement it in their work. It's complex and difficult. But if they have the skills, that's been the missing link is how to become competent in the whole range of 5 skill sets. And that means 60 skills. So what we have is we have anybody could start by going to the command college and accessing the leadership skills inventory. And they could do a self-assessment of which skills they think they have and don't have. And they could also have someone do a 360 on them. So they get feedback from other people about what skills are perceived that they have and don't have. And then they build a leadership development plan that's competency based. So they know which skills to practice and how to practice them because they've seen the modeling videos. If you don't see how it's done, it's pretty hard to imagine how to do it effectively unless you see it modeled well. Well, because I'd been modeling it in my classes for, you know, 30 some years, by the time I made these videos, I was able to do a good job of modeling each of the skills with real officers in real time, talking about real issues, not just phony role plays. So that's what people get when they enroll in the program is they actually get um, to see real issues being addressed, not only at the individual level, but at the team level and at the organizational level.
So going back to yourself, you talked about, this leadership mindset, the mental health aspect of it, the physical aspect, as it has allowed you to be a healthy, thriving 80-year-old today. What is in your toolkit on a daily basis to keep you thriving?
I joined a gym here. The new gym opened up, and I go 3 times a week, and I do 11 reps of every muscle group, and I do the cardio on the elliptical machine 3 times a week, and I walk at the beach here in White Rock. I love that beach, and it's become home to me. Um, so I walk 5 to 6,000 steps a day when I'm not at the gym, and pretty much moved toward a plant-based diet, but I still like the occasional salmon or halibut or steak. So I'm not rigid, but I'm trying to, keep the weight down, keep the muscle up. Um, I practice really a deep meditation and yoga just to keep all the muscles elongated, keep the blood flowing. And the deep relaxation and meditation are really a precious thing for me because that's a way I can move completely from the left side of the brain over to the right side of the brain and just get established of hanging out on the right side of the brain. So when a political event happens that sets off my alarms, and you know what the political events are. Everybody knows what the political events are that are setting off a lot of people's alarms.
Sure.
We don't have to specify who it is or what they are, but we know when that happens, I can just move over to the right side of the brain very quickly and say, I am so glad that I get to be alive right now. This is awesome that I get to be alive. And I'm going to be alive here now. I'm not going to be, I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow or a month from now or 6 months from now. And I have no control over what happens the political level, except I try to have. We don't know how much impact I have, but I attempt to have some impact. So I think that's the regime that I've been following. That, and I keep in touch with really lifestyle based doctors. I have one in California and one here in British Columbia because I'm a dual citizen and I move back and forth every year as a snowbird since I've retired. So um, the lifestyle medicine encompasses and communicates and educates the research on um, the healthiest possible pathway to longevity, the research based pathway to longevity. So, lifestyle medicine is a movement, and doctors get certified in lifestyle medicine, and chiropractors can get certified. Nutritionists can get certified in lifestyle medicine. And basically, it's a movement toward plants, a movement away from processed foods. And so I have paid attention to that because it's made a real difference in my own health. I've done the lab research in my own laboratory, and I've watched the numbers on the blood tests, you know, become more in line with healthy longevity.
Without the actual stats and your blood work and that kind of stuff, how do you feel mentally from that change in your lifestyle?
It's a relief to know that I can return to a state of equilibrium and peace at will. It's a great freedom, a very deep peace, and it's connected to my own sense of spirituality, which I don't any longer go around telling people I believe in this or that. I just am in the center of something really great and it
Awesome.
radiates.
Yeah, that's all
I
that
don't
matters.
I don't try to sell people.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, they ask me as you are, well, why are you so happy? And I tell them the same things I'm saying right now, uh, that it's been a search process and I'm still searching. And that's the adventure, that's the joy, is to be able to move from being ignorant to being educated to becoming great to becoming Magnus. And I think Magnus is where the freedom is and where the joy is in each moment. And it's possible to learn how to move from there to there. And that's been the most encouraging thing to me, to watch officers who've been struggling. I mean, I don't even I lost track of the number of my graduates. There were over five, maybe 6,000 of them over a period of 38 years. Many of them came back to me, and I referred them to one particular doctor in Vancouver who really started educating me 40 years ago about this lifestyle medicine. So I would refer them to him, and then I would keep track. They would come back and say, "Hey, thank you for referring me. Thank you for sending me that audio tape that you developed on meditation. So I learned how to meditate. Thank you for giving me that book on leadership skills or teaching that course in leadership." And that's made a real difference in their lives. Uh, and I've been able to track them over. Some of them I still get together with and have lunch with after 40 years.
We talk a lot about meditation on this podcast, and a lot of leaders are, encouraging this and promoting it and talking about it on a daily basis. But it's still, to this date, one of the harder skills for people to not necessarily master, but to build a habit of meditation. Any thoughts you want to pass on to the listener today on maybe where to start on meditation, or how you started personally?
Um, yeah, I first started when I was at UVic, the University of Victoria, completing my teacher certification requirements at the graduate level. And I got a summer job by the Ministry of Health to spy on youth movements across Canada and to write reports on them. And one of the youth movements they wanted me to spy on was the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. So I attended uh, Maharishi's Science of Creative Intelligence Symposium at Queen's University for a whole month. He was speaking there for a whole month, and I was there as an initiate at Transcendental Meditation initiate and secretly as a spy to assess what's going on there and write a report at the end of the month to Ottawa about what's happening in this youth movement. What I found out was the transcendental meditation technique works. No question about. At the same time, though, Herbert Benson at Harvard wrote a book and did research on meditators. And he found out that just by closing your eyes and repeating the word one, one, one. So he found out that the single minded focus on any one thing triggers the de escalation response. And so I reported Maharishi's technique to Ottawa, and I reported the research that Herbert Benson did to Ottawa, and they decided not to pay Maharishi's teachers to go into the prisons and teach all of the inmates and the staff at tens of thousands of dollars. They decided not to do that, but they gave everybody the option to learn meditation by using this simple technique of closing your eyes and just floating the word one, one. So I developed a meditation, which I could send you a copy of, in 1973, which was essentially what Maharishi teaches and what most meditations teach, but it's the simplest version of it. So the person gets to select the one thing that they want to focus on in my recording. Instead of having someone insert a mantra that is the name of a Hindu spirit, I found that out during this symposium. They can choose their own mantras or their own single-minded focus. Because as soon as we give the mind a place to rest, all the other systems calm down. So it has to be something charming, something maybe not distracting at all, that you can come back to and find a place of rest. But once you do that over and over, what happens is the muscle from the left side of the brain to the right gets developed. But what positive intelligence did is they found out a way to do that during the waking state, not during the meditative state. So eventually what happens as you practice that at either positive intelligence or meditation is that the meditative state becomes part of the waking state. And so you're actually in a clarity state while you are in the waking state. You're in that meditative clarity, peaceful state while you're actually in the waking state.
Sounds
Now,
very
something
powerful.
something dramatic can happen and jar you off center, but your capacity to come back quickly and to know you need to go back there is faster.
Oh, that sounds powerful.
Well, it's so elegantly simple that
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
embarrassed that I didn't know it,
Yes,
you
yes.
know?
Wow.
Yeah.
And you still do this today.
Well, yeah, because it's a luxury. It's a beautiful, peaceful place beside a lake that is placid and reliable. So that's what we can carry around within ourselves once we find the pathway down to our own lake. Then it becomes a life of inner life of peace and managing the stresses of what's happening on the outside and on the inside. So, in a sense, if like we've had to in this age and this day and age, we've had to learn to become windsurfers. Not only do we have to learn to surf the waves of change, but all of a sudden now the winds are coming stronger and faster. And so we have to put up the sail and we have to not only negotiate the waves of change, but the winds of change at the same time. But once we get up and do it and practice it, it's a sport. It's fun. And we experience this elevation of our mood and our confidence while we're negotiating these turbulences that are coming at us all the time. And especially if you're a first responder. I mean, my wife all of a sudden recently, about 2 years ago, became very, very dizzy and she had to sit down and she said, the world, is swirling and I don't know what's happening. I've never had this happen before. And so I phoned 911 and within 3 minutes, 5 6'6" fire and rescue people showed up at my home. They did a bunch of diagnostics on her in less than 2 minutes. And they said, okay, she's okay on the heart side. She's okay on the oxygen side. She's having probably some dizziness from an inner ear infection. Within 3 minutes, they accurately diagnosed her condition that was later diagnosed at the hospital. And she had about a month-long inner ear infection where her dizziness was continuing but decreasing over time. So I was so appreciative of those uh, fire rescue folks that I wrote a letter to the local fire chief and thanked him and gave him a copy of the Every Fire Rescue Professional is a Leader books.
Nice. Excellent. I know him. He's a good guy.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So anyway, I really became so impressed with the response rate and their capacity to diagnose and transport her to the hospital so quickly. They had to actually carry her, you know, to the elevator because she couldn't handle being moved around at all, except, you know, getting into a chair and all that, and getting that chair downstairs wasn't going to be possible. So
Wow.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing experience that we had, and it validates the competence and the speed at which fire rescue personnel can act, and it was inspiring to witness.
Love that story. It's not probably just the skills that they displayed, but it was also how they interacted with you and your wife, right? Which probably lasted an even more lasting
Yeah,
impression on you.
yeah, they really were skilled and unusually so.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know where they learned it all, but they worked incredibly well as a team. They had a very deep level of empathy with her suffering. And they were even concerned for me, asking me if I was okay. How are you doing with this? Before they left. And of course, I couldn't go and see her at the hospital because of COVID.
Ah, yes.
So
Yes.
she was sitting there alone, and I'm talking to her on her phone, and she said, "The world is still swirling, but now I know what's going on, and I'm okay."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that story because that's why we do what we do, right? That's
Oh
100%.
man, it
Yeah.
was it was
Yeah.
really an inspiring thing to watch.
I'm just looking at your backdrop. There is a big sailboat, a map in the background.
Yeah.
And I know one of the books that you co-authored is about your moral compass, essentially.
Yeah.
Uh, love to hear just a couple nuggets about what that means to you.
Well, I guess we all have a belief system, whether we've embraced one or not. We have a set of operational patterns that we follow uh, that we believe are to some degree ethical or moral or um, appropriate or proper. And that book was written by 10 people, and we each wrote a section. I wrote the section on honesty. And I guess I've always, my dad taught me, just keep it simple, be straight up, say the truth, and your life is going to be better and it's going to be simpler and you're not going to have to cover up anything and you're not going to have to worry. And so I just got that drilled into me, as a child. And I remember I took a lock from a hardware store and stole it. And so I was about 7. My dad came home and I was riding my bike around. I had this lock. I had the key opening. He says, "Where'd you get that?" And I said, "Oh, I found it." And it was brand new. And he said, "Son, you got to tell me the truth." And I, of course, quite innocently, I knew it was wrong, but I said, "Well, I got it from the hardware store." "Well, did you pay for it?" No. He said, "Well, let's go to the hardware store. We're going to talk to the owner. We're going to ask him what he wants you to do." And the hardware store said, "Well, since you stole it, you're going to have to sweep my floor." So I spent an hour and a half sweeping this big hardware store floor.
For a $3 lock, right?
Yeah, right. And it just embedded into my, wiring and my moral system that it's honesty means freedom from
Yeah.
worry, freedom from duplicity, freedom from sorrow, freedom. So I just, my dad was just a straight up guy, just such a simple, clear guy. I just got it from him and my mother as well.
Do
I
you
was
keep
an only
your?
child.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, were you? Okay.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to grow up. It's I don't know too many other ones.
No, that's right. Well,
That's
nowadays it's more common.
it is. Yeah. Yeah. How do
Yeah,
you keep your moral compass in the direction you want to be going? Like, is there some way you personally check in on yourself or keep yourself accountable?
positive intelligence.
Mhm. Back to that.
Just
Yeah.
stay on the right side of the brain. Don't allow the alarm system over here, which is handy. I mean, it's good to know if your hand's on the hot stove, you should take it off. So it's not a bad thing to have an alarm system. It's a good thing. It's just don't leave your hand on it while it gets hotter. And mental clarity and emotional balance is established by the right side of the brain and the prefrontal cortex, which is making new sense out of everything in each moment and evaluating a more appropriate response in each moment. The left side of the brain refers on repeating past patterns. Repeat, repeat, alarm, 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 repeat, repeat. And so it's useful to have that, but it's not useful to depend on it. Yeah.
So to kind of come to a close here, what's one message you want to make sure our listener who's listening right now, either doing the dishes, driving home from work, out in the garden, what do you want to leave them with
enjoy,
today? Enjoying life,
enjoy
100%.
each
Yes.
moment.
Yes.
Enjoy each moment.
Easy to say,
It's,
hard to do sometimes, right?
yes, it is. But each moment is so omnipresent that if we just take a breath, settle into the moment, tune into our breathing, which breathes itself, we don't even have to breathe it. Then we're in touch with and closer to our source, which is always going to be a mystery where we're not going to totally understand our source. But we're always gaining more understanding, more connection, more embracing of the mystery that we are.
Beautiful. Love that.
Yeah.
Is there a question that you wish I asked you that I have not asked you?
No, you're really great. This has been a really good interview. And I
Good.
don't think I've been able to articulate a lot of this
Oh, nice.
so clearly because of how open ended you've been.
Oh,
Thank you.
fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, how can people learn more about you? How can they become Magnus in their own world, in their own life? Where can they find your books?
They can go to commandcollege.org, and there's a little thing in the lower right-hand corner they can click on, and they can ask any question. And AI will take them to the part of the website they need to go to, including where the books are. And if they want to engage with me in a coaching kind of relationship, they could go to my own website, which is consultingcoach.com. I do some coaching, and the list of coaching options are on my website, and the letters of reference from people I've worked with are there. And I'm happy to entertain. I work about between 1 and 2 days a week, and then I say no the rest of the time so I can pretend I'm retired.
You? Good for you.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's why you worked so hard for the last number of decades to have this option in life to work 1 or 2 days a week, right, and enjoy other things outside of work and life, right? So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. And have a balanced life. It's really good.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Well, thanks so much, Arjuna. I appreciate you.
Oh,
The work
likewise,
that the work that you're doing is really important.
likewise, likewise. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for being, an ambassador for public safety, for police, fire, you name it, military. You said started off with social work all the way to today, right? So just want to thank you for putting that out into the world and put it into the words down on paper as well for years and years for generations to read and learn from you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you. Bye bye.
All right. Until next time, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed this amazing episode all about leadership, leading yourself, and becoming Magnus. So until next time, stay well.
Cheers.
All right. That's a wrap.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.